Quarries. There are many different kinds of stone, like brownstone, redstone, quartz, etc. The reason it's brownstone/redstone is because iron in the rocks rust and make it different shades of red and brown, depending how much iron is in them. Millions of years ago, a glacier sat on top of the land. As it melted, it carved way through our area, creating the Pioneer Valley. It left behind sediment in an alluvial fan. It packed down and created brownstone, and it went miles and miles deep into the ground. The reason brownstone is so valuable is how it's easily shaped, it's a very pretty stone, and that the stone is very strong for buildings and structures. It became very popular, and there was a great demand for it in the 1800s.
There have been many ways for splitting stone into rocks and pieces. It required many tools and people. Men that worked on the quarries had a very hard and demanding job. It took a lot of strength. It was very physical work. There would be 2 men swinging 8-pound sledges with both hands and would drill the rock about 40 times per minute. Each man swung 20 times per minute or once every 3 seconds. There were many tools used, big and small. Some tools used were sledges, chisels, and stone cutters. The sledges were used for transporting stone from the quarry. They used the chisels to chisel the rock and the stone cutters to cut the rock. The blasting method was the use of gunpowder in mining. It is the use of explosive. It blasts the large rock into small pieces. The plug and feather method is said to be an improvement of the blasting method. After the large rough pieces of the stone were quarried, specialized workers known as stone cutters would sculpt the stone and smooth it for buildings, sculptures, and cemetery stones. They had to be highly trained and were paid a lot of money. However, they inhaled lots of stone dust from working closely with it and would die in their 30s from stone cutters' consumption.
Locations of quarries in East Longmeadow. Quarries are where we get our stone to build buildings. There are many quarries in East Longmeadow. Some of them are still standing but not operational. One of the Brownstone quarries lies across from Brownstone Gardens. People who own the quarries could start their own quarry business. Some of the quarries located near Summers Road include McGill Quarry, Pat Quarry, Burton Quarry, and Granger Quarry. Moody Quarry, Beebe Quarry, and Maynard Quarry, also including King Quarry, are all near Elm Street. At a period in time, there were over 50 quarries in town. They were opened mainly in the late 1800s. They were closed down for a period of time until some businesses bought them and reopened them in the 1970s. People used them for swimming, but lots of people used to drown in them because they were so deep. Then the town stopped letting people swim in there for public safety. The Norcross Brothers. The Norcross brothers are James Atkinson Norcross, born March 1831, and Orlando Whitney Norcross, born October 1839. Their original house is made of East Longmeadow sandstone. Later they bought Worcester Quarry in 1876. Then they bought Taylor Quarry, Salisbury Quarry, Laird Quarry, and Cape Quarry. Their quarry business quickly erupted with the demand for the rock, and they became some of the wealthiest residents in East Longmeadow. They were also wealthy. They donated the brownstone for the town hall. Buildings made of East Longmeadow stone. Our East Longmeadow stone is sandstone, but often referred to redstone or brownstone because of its color. Some buildings made of this stone include Trinity Church in Boston, the Town Hall, St. Michael's Church, the Norcross Brothers House in Worcester, and Smith College in Northampton.
Railroad. If you live in East Longmeadow, you probably know we have a bike path. But did you know it was an old railroad? The bike path we have now is 1.6 miles long and made by Milk Curran in 2010. The name of it is the Rail Trail. The old train came through town to the old railroad station. It carried rock from the quarries, but did have passenger cars too. Also, from 1875 to 1900, when quarrying was at its highest point, about 17 carloads of stone would leave the station on a single train. Another fact is 3 or 4 trains would leave the station carrying 20 or more carloads of stone. The train ran on coal. The train went through East Hartford, Springfield, and East Longmeadow and eventually connected to New York and Boston. The reason East Longmeadow let them build the railroad was to make money for the town. Also, the name of the railroad was Springfield and New London Railroad. The railroad had a full-time station master since 1904. The first station master was Edward Coombs. Eventually, his son took over.
Rotary. The rotary was built almost 100 years ago. There are 7 roads coming into the rotary. The rotary is in Ripley's Believe It or Not. The purpose of the rotary is to have traffic move in an organized way. The Rotary Club is a civic organization that raises money through events like the Summer's Concert Series to give out scholarships and help areas of the community and world. There are medians in the Rotary, and the town mows them and keeps them neat. In the center median, there is a plaque and an American flag, and a flag that honors our war veterans missing in action. The flowers in the Rotary are taken care of by the East Longmeadow Garden Club. The Rotary Club is separate from the Rotary. The Rotary is famous because it is the only Rotary that has 7 roads coming into it with no traffic lights. There is a church that has been there for 100 years. The first Congregational Church. It was built in 1828. It was used for town meetings until Town Hall was built in 1882. Another church used to stand in the Rotary, but it was demolished. The Rotary began as dirt roads and eventually got paved in time with the invention of cars. Before that, people used to ride wagons pulled by oxen and horses. The watering trough used by animals is a display outside the town hall. This used to be in the center of the Rotary for people to water the animals.
One of the most important events of 1897 was the beginning of a movement to bring electric trolley cars to East Longmeadow from Springfield. All through there had been railroad service and occasional horse-drawn vehicles to carry passengers between local towns. There was a need for more frequent and convenient means of travel to Springfield. The Springfield Street Railway, which ran the trolley, was not in favor of the proposal. The streetcar track would have to cross the railroad line on North Main Street, which was dangerous. Eventually, a trolley was set up in town. It ran from Springfield to East Longmeadow. It operated 38 years until it was shut down in 1938.
Pete Sweets. Pete's full name is Peter Gray. He is 26 years old, and he bought the bakery at 21 years old. 5 years ago from now, he decided to open his bakery in East Longmeadow because he grew up here and he likes it here. He lives in East Longmeadow. He went to Primetime, Meadowbrook, and Mountain View when he was younger, and everything started as a 4th grade project, and he also made up the name Pete Sweets in 4th grade. He said that cookbooks taught him how to bake. On May 1998, he got a junior cookbook from his mom. He says it is very important to follow your recipes, and with a recipe it is not hard to bake. His favorite thing to bake is cookies because they are instant. He doesn't like to bake anything besides sweets, because when he tries, it comes out salty. Also because he is not good at it. But an easy meal he can make is turkey dinner. When he was on the cookie challenge, he said it was fun baking on it. He said it was fun because he likes working under pressure, and he works good under pressure. He says he is at the bakery almost all the time, and his mom works for him 1 day a week. His older brother comes in and helps him build stuff and fix things around the bakery. He also still lives in East Longmeadow. He has no other siblings except for his older brother who is 5 years older than him. One day, Pete even made cake for President Bush and he went to his house. A.W. Brown's. Tom Wheeler was the owner and grew up in Albany, New York. He started the business in 1985. He was 31 years old when he first opened the store. Tom bought an existing business. The old owner is Alison Brown, and she bought it in 1970. When Tom bought the store, he kept the name Brown's, for the first location of Brown's was on Maple Street. Tom went to the school at University of Vermont and Pennsylvania. The reason why he likes to own a store with animals is because they all have personalities like their customers. Tom always loved animals, especially horses. He is 63 years old now, and he has a 14-and-a-half-year-old black lab named Goldie. Tom said it is hard to own a business. McGill Hose and Coupling, Inc. On April 12, 1962, the H.A. McGill Co. was opened at 26 Maple Court in East Longmeadow by Harry A. McGill. Working with his wife named Dorothy, who handled the surgical tasks, McGill fabricated hose assemblies. The company prospered and soon moved to larger quarters became necessary. Then, in 1971, the firm moved to 44 Baldwin Street. That is where the workforce continued to increase. In 1976, there was a branch office that opened in Worcester. Harry A. C. McGill, the son of the founder, ran in the Worcester office until 1980. Then, when both operators were consolidated into a new 10,000 square foot facility on Benton Drive in East Longmeadow Industrial Park. Now 18 employees continue to supply hose assemblies made of metal, rubber, and Teflon, as well as a variety of fittings and couplings.
Graziano Gardens. Graziano Gardens is a family-owned business. It was opened in 1985 by Jean and S. Michael Graziano. Their sons David, Chris, and Mark had a landscaping business. It is located at 280 Elm Street. They opened in East Longmeadow because they needed a large area to maintain nursery stock. The construction took a year to complete. The building is a yellow castle with a red roof. A customer came up with the idea to make it look like a Christmas house because they were selling Christmas villages.
Town Hall. In 1881, Town Hall was built and opened in 1882. It was first used as a school in 1894, but then Brownstone Park was opened in 1951. The building was built out of stone. The Norcross Company built and gave the town stone. The first town meeting was on April 3rd, 1882, and in 1924, Town Hall became the only place to do election. It only cost $7,000 when it was built. They built 4 temporary offices in 1953. Right now, there are different departments in Town Hall. One department is assessors. Assessors are people who are responsible for running the place. There are other departments like the health department or information technology.
Fire Department. In 1896, the first firefighters were called forest wardens. In 1912, they got changed to house wardens. Also in 1920, they got changed to firefighters, and they still are today. The first fire station was built in 1923 at the rear end of Town Hall. It was a one-car garage with a tin roof. The first fire truck was a Seagrave from 1924. They do not use a Seagrave anymore. In 1925, $5,000 were given to build a fire station on Shaker Road. It is still standing today, but it is used for different things. Now, they have 3 new fire trucks and a new fire station on Summers Road. They have a rescue truck, a fire truck, and a fire engine. All 3 trucks do different things. A rescue truck helps people in car accidents. A fire truck finds people in fires and helps them. Lastly, a fire engine puts out fires. These fire trucks have cameras to see through smoke, fans, and hoses. Also, they have ropes and toolboxes. Firefighters work from 6 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. Call firefighters work after 6 o'clock p.m. if needed. All firefighters have drill. Drill is like school but for firefighters. In drill, firefighters learn to make knots, teach people to stay safe, and more. Firefighters learn new things every day. A long time ago in East Longmeadow, if there was no telephones, then people could not call 911. The first firefighters would pull a rope attached to a bell or horn, which is like Morse code, but for firefighters, and it will tell everybody there was a fire. Now we call 911. Did you know that horses used to pull fire trucks to fires? Fire dogs are Dalmatians. Dalmatians are black and white, so horses can see them easily. Dalmatians used to keep horses in line. Now we drive our fire trucks and don't need horses.
East Longmeadow Fire History. The first chief of the East Longmeadow Fire Department was Mark Bourgeois. The chief today is Paul J. Morissette. 4 firefighters work per shift in the building. To put out a fire, the men work in groups of 2 to 4, but there could be more depending on the size of the fire. Their biggest fire was at Bluebird Estates in September 2007. There were about 100 fire trucks and 200 firemen trying to put it out. Even fire trucks from all around Massachusetts were there helping. The whole building caught on fire when they were still constructing it. When fire trucks were first made, they were called pumpers because they would pump water through the hose. When there was a fire, they would write down the date of when it happened in a special book. Now that book is in a display case at the fire department. Firefighters have to train for 10 weeks at a time. They train in a room that is similar to a school classroom. They sit down at the tables and listen to the person speaking up front. This is called drill.
Police Department. In 1922, a local police department was arranged with Edward Craven as chief. Later on, the department was moved in 1953 to Maple Street. The police department on Summers Road was built in 1974. Jeffrey D'Alessio was chief since April 2016. The favorite part of his job is interacting with people and making a bad day better. Some of the weapons they have is sidearm rifles, tasers, handcuffs, and pepper spray. Sometimes they don't have to use weapons, they just talk to the people. The technology they use to track the criminals is LoJack, GPS, computers, cameras, and they are in the process of getting drones. They have 4 male cells, 2 female cells, and 1 juvenile cell. Each one is about 5 by 8 feet. 4 cars, they have 6 first responders, 3 spare cars, 1 court car, and 1 detective car. East Longmeadow has no canine cops, but they are thinking about it. And they have 16 police officers.
The Little Red Schoolhouse. The Little Red Schoolhouse was opened in 1792. It has been standing for over 100 years. North School is known as the Little Red Schoolhouse by East Longmeadow residents. It was built in 1869 and closed in 1916. It was a one-room schoolhouse located at North Main Street and Westwood Avenue. The Forestier family donated the school to the town. When it bought the property, the school was moved in 1994 to Center Hill Park. Now it is sometimes used for story time from the library and music for the little people. When kids had to use the bathroom, they had to go to the outhouse.
Center School. Center School was built in 1890 with 4 classrooms. They held classes in St. Paul Lutheran Church until Center School was ready. In 1909, they added 4 classrooms. The rooms were finished in 1912. Indoor toilets were installed in 1929 for $22,000. Center School stood at 60 Center Square first, which is where the town hall stands now. Then they moved it to 35 School Street, which is where the Little Red Schoolhouse stands now. Center School was destroyed on October 4th, 1971. They had to pay $2,700 to remove asbestos, which is a deadly chemical. The building schoolhouse stands now. Grade 1 through 8 attended Center School. Some people wanted 9th graders to attend, but they attended Forest Park Junior High. The principal was Donna Hutchin.
The school day was from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Center School was destroyed at a total cost of $3,750. No new school was ever built in place of Center School.
Pleasant View. There were a lot of kids in East Longmeadow and the schools were crowded. It was decided to open Pleasant View School because of the high student population. The school opened in fall of 1916. Pleasant View was first built on North Main Street for grades 1 through 8. Pleasant View opened 8 a.m. through 4 p.m. every day. The first principal was Angela Creel, and she was also the principal of Meadowbrook School when it opened. Also, the student population started to decline in the 1970s. Because there wasn't enough students, the town wanted to turn the school into office space and storage space. Now it is the East Longmeadow Senior Center.
Maple Shade School. On November 18, 1952, voters attended a town meeting. The school building committee had a plan to build a new school, but they needed approval to build a school on Elm Street. The following year, in November, voters developed a site and built the school. Maple Shade School was built in 1954. Maple Shade School had 16 classrooms. This school was designed to utilize natural lighting, but now Maple Shade is a dark place. One principal covered all the windows with brick to make it easy to keep the school warm and lower the heating cost. The first principal of the school was Mr. Kenneth Johnson, and he was there September 1955 to 1957. The current principal of Maple Shade is Michael Fredette.
Old Birchland Park. There have been 2 Birchland Park schools in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. One was built in 1959 and the other was built in 2000. The old Birchland was smaller than the Birchland now. The school was located where the track is now, therefore there was no track. Old Birchland Park had more programs such as a sewing or cooking class and a shop or woodworking class. It also had a real auditorium and a separate cafeteria. Many teachers retired and new teachers came in for the new school. The last principal and assistant principal from the old Richland were Mrs. Kathleen Hill and Mr. Ronald Elk. There was also no tech ed in the school. Some secretaries were Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Gorman. I got the information from them. Another thing about them is that they have been there for 22 and 32 years. One of the biggest reasons they closed and demolished this old school was the asbestos chemical that was thought out the building mold and some minor structural issues. It was determined and voted that a new school was needed.
Mountain View School. Mountain View School was built in 1960 with 20 classrooms. All classrooms were designed with a door to the outside to eliminate traffic in the corridors. They used specific materials to eliminate construction and maintenance costs. It was built on the corner of Hamden Road and Summers Road. The site contains 18.41 acres of land. Mr. Markham used to own the land where Mountain View School stands. He did not want to sell his land, but the town forced him to. Wilma Elisha crashed a plane on the pasture of Mr. Markham's farm. I had the pleasure of interviewing the current principal, Mrs. Elaine Santinello, and here is how the interview went. How long have you been principal?
8 years.
What is your favorite part about your job?
Going into classes and seeing what they are doing.
How many kids are in the school?
305.
What do you know about Mountain View history?
I remember when Mountain View, Maple Shade, and Meadowbrook were all grades K through 6.
East Longmeadow High School. On November 6, 1958, the town was called for a special meeting. At that meeting, an expenditure of $2,170,000 was approved for the construction and equipping of a new high school. Also approved an additional $130,000 for an indoor swimming pool. The town would need a high school in the late 1950s. They selected a site on Chestnut Street near Prospect Street. Before there was an East Longmeadow High School, kids went to Forest Park Junior High School and Classical High School in Springfield. East Longmeadow High School, 180 Maple Street, opened September 7, 1960. It's been standing for 58 years. The building was expanded in 1965 to add another two-story classroom. There are about 60 classrooms. There are some really great clubs you can do, such as Business Club, Drama Club, Environmental Club, Foreign Language Club, Key Club, and Multicultural Club. There are plenty of sports to choose from, such as lacrosse, field hockey, track, swim, football, tennis, and cheerleading. At ELHS, you can take many different classes, such as cooking, child development, band, art, math, science, social studies, health, and foreign language. The language that you can take are Spanish, French, and Latin. Most of the classes are 42 minutes long. The school day is 6 hours and 20 minutes. It starts at 7:25 and ends at 1:45. Some of the best lunches are lunch buns, mozzarella cheese sticks, and cheese pizza. The principal of the school is Gina Flanagan, and the school nurse is Tia Mezzo.
Meadowbrook School. Meadowbrook School opened on February 2nd, 1969. The location is on Parker Street and Porter Road. The school was $1,415,000. The school took classes from other schools to fill the space in the building. The central portion contained the office, teachers, the workroom, a lounge, a library, a cafeteria, an auditorium, and a kitchen. It was completed after many construction delays. They started to build it on 9/28/1967. It took 2 years to build. The land cost $27,500. The first principal was Angelo Corella. When it first opened, Meadowbrook had 258 preschoolers and 370 students in total. Meadowbrook caught fire in March 1979. They had to build and repair it again. The school was outfitted with 4 portable classrooms in 1998 to accommodate the growing population. The new kindergarten wing opened in March 2004.
New Birchland Park Middle School. The new Birchland Park was established in the fall of 2000. Teachers moved from the old Birchland to the new one that same year. Some of the clubs in this new school are Math Counts, Yearbook, Instrumental Music, Orchestra, and Diversity Club. There are many others. The current principal and assistant principal are Dr. Timothy Allen and Mr. Connor Martin. There are a total of 670 students in the school. Richland Park has 53 classrooms plus about 5 other rooms. Expectations for the students are to push through hard things and to be kind to one another. And something that makes Richland Park special or different is the incredible community of teachers and parents who love Richland Park and want the very best for their students, children, and for the school. Lastly, the school motto is learning together equals future success.
Elisha Bert House. The Elisha Bert House, built in 1720, was listed in the 1883 History of the Town Longmeadow as the oldest house in the East Village. Purchased in 1969 by the Bergamini family, the house has been modernized without altering its historical significance. 4 original fireplaces, including the 2 uncovered during remodeling, plus 2 beehive ovens were once the only source of heating and cooking, but now only add character to the house. Originally a stagecoach stop, the house had wide floorboards, paneled walls, and a farmland that went all the way to the rotary. The house contained a secret stairway slaves would hide in during the Civil War days. The house was the first local building to be accepted for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. I asked the owner of the Elisha Bert House a few questions. How long have you been living in this house?
About 10 years. We moved in November of 2007.
Have you found anything old in your yard?
Yes, we found lots of red rocks for a foundation, and we also found an old arrowhead.
What's your favorite thing about your house?
I like the character, and I like our sunroom.
How do you like living in an old house?
I have mixed feelings for it.
Do you have any future plans for the house?
We are going to finish the windows, take down the paneling, and put the hidden staircase back in.
The Betterly House. A unique feature of the Betterly House is the second floor, which was originally the 4th District Schoolhouse, once located at North Main Street and Westwood Avenue. Records show that the one-room school was completed in 1792 but moved to its present location in 1869. Hauled to the location, it was raised on gun stock posts to become the second floor, and the first floor was constructed. To give the room height, a curved ceiling was suspended from the rafters, and this feature has been retained.
Swetland Peace House. The Swetland Peace House at 191 Pease Road has been accepted by the Heritage Conservation and Recreation Service for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. It has been announced by Patricia L. Weslowski, State Historic Preservation Officer, and Michael Joseph Cannelly, Secretary of State and Chairman of the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Swetland Peace House was built by Benjamin Swetland in 1793. The Swetland Peace House was listed in the National Register of Historic Places on May 28, 1980. Swetland Peace House is a federal-style farmhouse built for the Pease family. Marvin Henry Pease was born in the house in 1860. The Swetland Peace House was the third building to be listed in the National Register.
The Hancock House. Built in 1795, the Hancock House still has two fireplaces, one being a Dutch oven type. The house has wide plank flooring throughout. The dining room and den have large planks on the wall. Hand-hewn beams with pegs and bark are still in the attic. The attic beams in this building are large, round logs that are not shaped. The building next to the main house was once a blacksmith shop. The original well is still in front of the house. This land stayed in the Hancock family from 1742 until 1921. The Hancock family used to own all the land where the other houses are now. They had to demolish their driveway to build the other house directly next to them. The Hancock House is seen here on Porter Road. Daniel's son Ethan Hancock is standing in front of the house. He later became a member of the town school committee. Ethan was elected at East Longmeadow's first town meeting in 1894 to the school committee. Ethan Hancock was born March 17, 1837, a son of Daniel and Ruth Hancock. His father was a native to Hartford, Connecticut, and came with his father Azaria to East Longmeadow at the age of 6 months. Ethan was educated in the town schools and then began farming on the family homestead. He served as selectman and assessor, overseer of the poor, member of the Board of Health, and school comedian. The house is still a residence today.
The Nooney House. The L of this home at 210 Hamden Road was built in 1812 of hand-hewn timbers with handmade nails. Abel Pease added the upright part in 1863. The clapboard house had a casket door with a redstone foundation. In addition to the house, the property also contained a horse barn and a two-story barn with a shed. It was originally a farm with 116 acres, but most of the land was sold in 1941 for a housing development. The Nooney family owned the house for many years, and that's why they called it the Nooney House.
The McIntosh Farm. Robert McIntosh was born November 9, 1783, and he left his home when he was in his teens. After a few years, he was joined by his brother Clark, and the two of them purchased a farm and for some years cultivated it together. After a fairly successful partnership of 4 or 5 years, Robert and his family came to East Longmeadow and settled upon a farm which he purchased from Samuel Caldwell. The farm was built 1830, and the deed bears the date August 26, 1815. They only paid $1,650 for 100 acres of land. Robert McIntosh was one of the first, if not the first, to open a quarry and tell the world about the great stone formations which underlie a large part of East Longmeadow. Robert McIntosh was part of the First Baptist Church. The site had been the home of Robert McIntosh, one of the earlier settlers in the East Village, and it had to be demolished in 1962 before construction could begin. The barn was saved and used for several fundraisers before building could begin. After the barn was raised, a large 40 by 60-foot tent was erected for fundraising. These affairs encouraged social interaction among the members, which strengthened working relationships. They sold 4.77 acres to the church.
56 Summersville Road. Summersville Crossroad was built sometime prior to 1830, although the original records were lost in a fire at Longmeadow Town Hall. The construction with chestnut posts and beams and wooden pegs, as well as the kitchen, fireplace with a brick oven. It is one of the oldest houses in town. The structure appears on 1831 Longmeadow Town map. The house is notable in that it has been owned and occupied by the same family since its purchase in 1862. 592 Prospect Street. The barn at 592 Prospect Street is located to the northeast. The house has a post and beam construction and built of chestnut. It has a gable end to the street with a large sliding door. The foundation is of the famous East Longmeadow sandstone. It has 2 stories with a large and high loft. A ladder leads to cupola on the roof. It also has a barn with a cornerstone that contains a carving of a man's face and date of 1898. It was speculated that the carver was William Kibbe. There is a milk room. It has no foundation and it is one fall story with a shallow attic. It was built in the mid-1800s. There is a large walk-in milk cooler in the room. This was probably added by William H. Williams, who was a milk dealer for the town.